This is video history from the J. Bay Jacobs Library for the History of Obstetrics and Gynecology in America. And on this fine May afternoon in the year 1991, my guest is Dr. Leroy Weekes from Los Angeles, California, a Life Fellow and founding Fellow of the college. We're delighted you're with us here.
Thank you,
Leroy. Tell us to start with something about your background. Where did you come from? Where did you go to school? All that sort of thing.
Be happy to. I was born in Atlantic City, New Jersey in 1913.
You didn't really have to tell us the year, but that's all right.
Well, it's pretty well known, and came up in the school system of Atlantic City. The important thing about my experience in Atlantic City was that when it came time for me to leave high school and go to college, we experienced one of the worst depressions we've ever known. In fact, what little money my parents had saved up for my college work was completely dissolved in the banks. All the banks closed, and no one had any savings. So my dreams of a college career just about ended. But my cousin found out about some oratorical contests which were being held by the Elks, Improved Benevolent Protective Order of Elks of the World. And he told me he thought that this might be my one chance to get a scholarship and get out of Atlantic City. So I participated. And fortunately, I was able to win the local contest, went on to win the state, won the regional, and placed in the national. And that took about a period of about 6 months. And when I looked around, I had $1,100 in 1931. Which was a lot of money.
A lot of money in those days.
And that was the difference between my leaving Atlantic City and getting a college education. I had applications in and acceptances received at 2 schools, Howard University and Dartmouth up in New Hampshire. Almost forgot about Dartmouth. And I had to make a selection between the 2. Unfortunately for Dartmouth, practically all the advertisements I received from Dartmouth were winter scenes. Cold, snow, ice, freezing weather. Practically all the advertisements I received about Howard University showed the spring scenes, the downtown part of Washington, the Easter Festival, and the lilies and the visitors and the big buildings. And I said, well, at least my money is limited. And at least if I go to Howard, I'll be warm. I'll probably be cold if I go to Dartmouth. So that ended my anticipation about possible Dartmouth. And I went to Howard University in 1931. And I don't think I've left Howard since that time. I've always had some involvement. I've got my undergraduate degree in 1935. I got my medical degree in 1939. And then I wanted to intern at the Freedmen's Hospital, which is the hospital in Washington, D.C. But I was able to start, at that time, I had a decision to make, whether I would go to Freedmen's or whether I'd go to Chicago. And I'd been so long in Washington, I thought I should get another point of view. So I accepted an invitation to do my internship at Providence Hospital in Chicago.
Now, where was Providence Hospital?
And that was in the center part of Chicago, right off of Parkway Boulevard. And it was about 130 beds. It then was ranked about the 3rd of the black hospitals. But I had heard about a great obstetrician at Providence Hospital who was in charge of the obstetrical section. And that was Dr. Pedro Santos, and he was outstanding. In fact, he had the best record for cesarean sections in that time of anybody in the city of Chicago. And he had been trained by the professors from the University of Chicago, and his section record was practically spotless. Now, I imagine why, in order for him to do a cesarean section, there were 5 people in the field. Dr. Santos, the assistant surgeon, the chief on the service, the resident, and the intern, all in that field. And nothing could go wrong, and everything was perfect and spotless. And I was very much impressed with Dr. Santos and the work in Chicago, and had planned to practice there. But I went out to Chicago after I had finished my other training to see about a place of practice when I had finished my training work. And Dr. Santos met me and said he was very happy that I thought about coming back to Chicago. But he said the person that he had selected to succeed him was Dr. Steptoe, Dr. William Steptoe, whom he had birthed, whom he had trained, and who was waiting in the wings to take over and when he stepped down. So that left me without Chicago. And in Washington, D.C., where I'd been trained under Dr. Ross, there were no vacancies at that particular time.
Well, so, we know you as a California obstetrician. Something must have happened then to get you to go west.
Something did. With those two possibilities ended, I had been out on the West Coast in Los Angeles during the war. I was in the Air Force, in fact, a flight surgeon, and had been in the Air Force and in the Army service about 3 years. And I was all set at that particular time to go overseas with a aviation battalion leaving from March Field in California. And I was one day just looking over my papers, getting ready for our disembarkation. And my first sergeant came by and said, "Dr. Weekes, did you know that the orders in headquarters have come for you to be transferred to the School of Aviation Medicine?" And didn't you know about it? I said, "No." I said, "Do you mind then if I go and tell the commanding officer that I'd like to honor that application and that acceptance?" So I went over and I met the major who was in charge of the outfit. And he said, "No," I said, "you're indispensable to this unit. We're not going to let you go." I said, "Do you mind if I speak to the commanding officer of the base?" He said, "No, I can't stop you from doing that." And the commanding officer was Colonel Brown. And he said, "Dr. Weekes," and then Captain Weekes, he said, "if something happened to President Roosevelt today, Harry Truman would be president." And that happened in my time to see the president die, of course, and Truman took over as president. He said, "You go back to your unit and soldier with them, and I guarantee that your orders will be accepted, and you will go into Randolph Field, get your training in aviation medicine, then on to study at Tuskegee, and be associated for a short time with the flying 99th Pursuit Squadron, which went overseas and distinguished itself."
Famous outfit.
Famous outfit.
Air Force,
yes,
it was.
Yes.
Then how'd you end up back in California then?
Well, when I finished my training after I got out of the war, I came back to Washington to finish my training. And then I did have hopes of staying and succeeding my chief, Dr. James Waldo Ross, Julian Waldo Ross.
Famous physician at Howard.
Famous physician at Howard. And I loved him like a father. And I had hoped to stay and succeed him. But there was one person ahead of me in the line of seniority. And it happened at that time that position was secure. So Dr. Ross said that there's nothing that I can do for you at this present time. And so my second choice was Chicago. I went out and saw Dr. Pedro Santos again. And he had someone else in mind there, Steptoe. So then I came back, my wife said, "Let's go to California." We spent some nice years there. So we'll go out and open in California. That's how I got to California in 1948.
Now, where did you establish practice then in California?
I established the first on Western Avenue, and I've been on Western Avenue now for practically 50 years.
In Los Angeles?
In Los Angeles, that's right. And we were fortunate enough, though, that I got a group of young doctors together, and we got together and funded our resources and built what is still the largest, and I would say the most progressive black medical center in the country. And that's the Ross Medical Center, and was named after my chief mentor, Dr. Julian W. Ross. And he came out for the opening. And that is our center of operation, is still there. And I'm fortunate enough to have my daughter, who is an ENT, working in my office with me. And we have a total of some 100 physicians of color. And our mixture now of the interracial group in the command of that medical center, and rendering some excellent service to the west side of Los Angeles.
Now, you were one of the early board-certified obstetricians in the Los Angeles area, weren't you?
I was the first board-certified obstetrician in the Los Angeles area. And unfortunately, there were no black physicians on major hospital staffs. So I was fortunate enough to have some recommendations from very high persons in the Catholic Church. And I became the first black obstetrician gynecologist on the staff of Queen of the Angels. And having served some time at Temple Hospital, and went on to spend the rest of my major career, which will perhaps come to an end at Queen of Angels Hospital, which is now joined with Hollywood Press, and that has become my home.
Well, we don't expect it to come to an end anytime soon. So.
Well, hope not. I'm feeling good. Although, as I was telling the associate in the office, that I'm ready for major arthroscopic, arterial surgery. And it looked for a while as though I was not going to be able to make this trip. And I just cried to my wife, said, no, please don't interrupt this. I've got to make this trip. And so I went into the hospital 2 days ago and had a pint of blood drawn from me. And when I go back on Thursday, I will have major arterial surgery. But the outlook is good.
Well, we're glad for that.
And I wasn't going to miss this appointment. I'm happy I could make it, and it's one of the most outstanding experiences in my career, being you, Dr. Pearce, and with the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology.
You're a founding fellow, which means that your fellowship dates back to 1951 or 1952.
That is correct.
I guess. What were your early experiences with the college? Anything particular?
Well, I met Keith Russell and practically all of the senior persons who were interested, who became parts of the association. And fortunately, that gave me entree to the society in Los Angeles. And this was important in stimulating me to write many of the papers that I wrote. And one of the major papers in my book is the one about Princess Charlotte in 1800, who during her delivery, the labor was prolonged over some 3 days. The baby died, she died, and the physician who was taking care of her died. And that paper was one of those that I chose to put in my book, and it won the prize as the best paper of the year by the Los Angeles OB Society. And that was one of the most interesting papers I've ever written, and the one that I prize above all.
Tell me about your book.
Well, the book is out and published in 2 volumes. I have them here. And what happens? What I plan to do with the book is from the income that we get from the book, I plan to donate it to the 4 minority medical schools. That's Howard, Meharry, Drew, and Morehouse. Already we have from the sales collected some $70,000. And we have a big extravaganza scheduled for the latter part of July, in which our primary speaker is going to be Dr. LaSalle Lafall, the eminent black surgeon. And we expect to get some considerable donations in large sums. And then at the meeting of the National Medical Association in Indianapolis, Indiana, I hope to have this, whatever proceeds we have, and I hope there'll be several $1,000s to be given to the National Medical Association, and then be divided among these 4 minority medical schools.
I think a lot of people don't appreciate, Dr. Weekes, that obstetrics is a very popular specialty for black physicians.
Yes, it is.
There are more black physicians in OB-GYN than there are in most of the other specialties. Why do you think that's so? Apart from good leadership like your own.
Well, at Howard University, Dr. Ross was so outstanding that practically all the spots in the program were always taken. Probably close second would be Dr. Charles Drew and his surgical program. And those were the 2 main specialties. So most of the people being trained in postgraduate work at Howard University were either OB-GYN or general surgery. I think I had never thought about it that way, but I think that is the explanation.
I suppose it's strong leadership. I think there's been good leadership at Meharry as well in the specialty.
As well at Meharry too, because many of my friends in the Ross Medical Center are from Meharry. That's the second minority group, and Drew School now is getting to be more important to me, because I'm considered by Mr. Hahn, who is our supervisor, considered to be one of the 4 founders of the Jew School. So I've been very much involved with the Jew School in its development, and as a member of the Board of Trustees there, having been chairman of the board for some 10 years.
How long have you known our president, Dr. Davidson?
From almost the first day he came to California and the Jew School. And I could see the possibilities in him and became an advocate from day one. And I've done everything that I know how to forward his career and to help him. And it has been a pleasure to me to be associated with him. And the experience that he gave me last year up in San Francisco at the meeting of ACOG, to be able to walk with him as he went up to receive the presidency of the American College of OB-GYN, and then to have me stand and have him give a few complimentary remarks. That's one of the highlights of my life, and I love Ezra dearly for it.
Your own contributions in Los Angeles, I think, certainly from all the people there, have gone far beyond black physicians and healthcare in that population. Right. You're the mainstream in Los Angeles.
Well, many of my residents I met even one on the way here today, coming up. So it's been interracial, and I've always wanted it that way, and it's been that way, and I appreciate it, and it's given me greater latitude too, because what I've been able to do could not have been done just in the black sector.
You're still at Queen of Angels.
Still at Queen
Hospital.
of Angels. We're joined now with Holly Press, and it's called Queen of Angels Holly Press, and still one of the senior physicians there. And I spent most of my medical life with the Catholic Sisters of the Queen of Angels.
Where is that hospital located, Dr. Lee?
That's in Hollywood, on Vermont Boulevard and Fairmont.
And you're still practicing both obstetrics and gynecology, as I understand it.
A year or 2 more, and I think then I'll put it up. But I still will be in the office. I just can't see sitting down at home yet. My wife would love to have me do it, but the time is not yet for me, because I enjoy what I'm doing so much. And I've even now got another project on a book, which I hope to start as soon as I finish with this book and get the donations to the 4 medical schools.
What's the new project?
Well, my resident said, it's only one book for you to write now. And he said that it's about you and you alone. So that's my assignment for one of my chief residents.
Well, that's something that's certainly going to fit in well with our own library for the history of obstetrics and gynecology in America. Your own biography, I guess that's really an autobiography, is going to be an important part of what we have. Certainly.
Well, I certainly look forward to this meeting with you today. In fact, that's all that I've heard around my home and in my professional area now about this visit to the American College of OB-GYN, and I'm very pleased it turned out to be everything that I anticipated it would be.
Dr. Weekes, it's our pleasure to have had you. We certainly know from your colleagues in California that you're revered as one of the real academic leaders in the Los Angeles area and certainly in the state of California. We thank you for doing what you have done and what you are doing for medical education in our specialty.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's a high point in my life today.